So my name's Terrence Branley with Grow AI. I used to have the Grow IT podcast. It's kind of been like sidelined, but so for this case, I don't know if we'll call this the Grow IT podcast or just the Grow AI. Maybe it'll be number one of the Grow AI podcast. And I'm talking with Eric Keener, who is a director of marketing for InTimeTec, which we are both local here to the Boise Meridian area.
Yep.
Which is probably part of our story that we'll go into. But I'm just grateful. You obviously were a client of ours, and I'm just grateful to kind of get your feedback, your experience with working with us, and really just to hear the InTimeTec story because it is fantastic. So
It's a unique one for sure. The InTimeTec, it's weird saying it because it feels like I'm an ambassador saying things that need to be said, but really, you've met with Jeet, our CEO, a bunch of times. We are a very unique company. And one of the things that makes us unique is we did not have official lead generation, demand gen style marketing for the first 15 years of the company's existence. And somehow, well, I know how, it grew to over 35 million a year company. I mean,
that's what I want to get to. I want to ask it
Yeah.
because let's take a step back, right? So even the way that we came into contact was, Jeet, which unbeknownst to me, so Jeet Kumar is the CEO of InTimeTec. Unbeknownst to me, he had responded to one of our ads. He had forwarded it to Michelle, who is your kind of your VP of Operations, General Manager, and they had reached out. But from there, we didn't even realize that. In fact, I was out of town at the time, but we didn't even realize that they were a Meridian, based
Yeah.
IT consulting firm, software dev firm, and I was too. I just happened to be out of town. But anyway, when I came back, and I remember the first meeting here, and Jeet walked up to me and shook my hand and was like, "Glad to be here." And I was like, "Who is that?" And she was like, "That's Jeet. He's our CEO. He's the one that saw your ad." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And it all started from there, right? So, and I thought that would be it. Well, next thing you know, he comes into the conference room with all of us, right, and gives me this potential vendor at best, right, this deep history of InTimeTec and the hockey stick, revenue growth that you guys have been experiencing. And then on top of it, to say that they had gotten to, 35 million and really had grown from referrals, network leads, word of mouth, et cetera, which is that's the type of clients that we're used to helping, but more on let's call it the $2 to $10 million range. And so
Yeah.
that just blew me away.
Yeah. So we, ever since 2009, when we were founded, we were profitable every year up till about 2.5 years ago. And that's because Jeet really built out his leadership team. He diversified our investments. We're doing merger and acquisitions. We're expanding our reseller network in the U.S. We opened up 8 global offices. So profitability slowed because of some of those things. But at the same time, Jeet really can play 4-dimensional chess. I don't even know, the guy is traveling almost daily around the world to help different sales teams and different offices and different leadership initiatives. And yet he still has time to look at Meta and see ads. And somehow he's like, "Hey, we should look at this guy. We didn't even know you're local." And why he did that was because we realized that we had hit a bit of a growth ceiling from doing things the way we did, which was relationship nurturing. It was so much word of mouth. It was a CEO that was delighted to work with us, switching roles to another company and saying, "Hey, we need to bring these guys along," because again, we're not a technology vendor. We're a vested technology partner. So we look for those long-term relationships and we just grow and grow and grow with them. But we're like, okay, let's get into more serious, active, omni-channel, multi-channel marketing. And that's one of the reasons why I got brought on. And so I came in with a fair amount of experience. I'd been product marketing manager at Cisco Systems. I was at the #1 agency in the U.S. As a key accounts rep. I spent 6 years as a head of marketing for the largest law firm in my county at the time, and had a lot of experience. But the reason we wanted to bring you into the conversation was we don't know what we don't know. And I want to know someone that's done it, that has it dialed. You already had the ad formats and styles and landing page styles. They were already created and proven. So it was like, okay, let's look into that. And as a relationship, we didn't really want you to run the ads for us. We wanted you to let us into your system to see, because I have a global marketing team, so we can accomplish these things. And since, as you know, I'm sure we'll get into
Mhm.
it, we've taken what you've done and we've built and expanded and made it work for us. But yeah, the initial was like, hey Terrence, let's just learn from you. Let's have some kind of relationship and see what that looks like.
I want to go back just a second, and I appreciate it. And I don't, I want to go back to what it was like for you coming into this company who had done no marketing, right? And that,
Oh man,
to be at, what were they at,
yeah,
35 million when we were close to it, or
close to it, yeah.
what was that like?
Um, Gosh, where to start? I was building a home here in Idaho, and to satisfy the mortgage paperwork, I needed income in Idaho. And I had an agreement to be working remotely. I just sold my company back in California. And so I called a graphic designer, good buddy of mine who worked at a tech company. I said, hey, you know of anything in the area that like a manager director level? And he goes, give me your resume right now. Like, why the urgency, dude? And he said, our marketing manager stepped down this morning. And so it was basically
Are you
3 days
kidding?
later I was hired. There was no formal interviews. I came to a company party, the summer party, met the whole team, took them out to lunch, get to know where they're at. And as it turns out, the marketing manager at the time was a fantastic writer. And so there was a lot of content production, a lot of branding, but there was not really any lead generation. No paid media, no PR. It was really just let's write blogs. And so I joined the company and I did a big old digital audit on where our footprint's at, and I saw that our website didn't have H1s, or if it did, there were multiple, and then there was no H2s, and then there was like 1,300 H6s, and it wasn't indexed, and it didn't have the right sitemap, and the robot.txt was got like digitally, you couldn't find, if you searched software solutions company in Idaho at the time, we didn't show up. Even if it was in Meridian, Idaho, wouldn't show up. It was just an unindexable site. So we started there. Saw the logo. It was a pretty dated font that kind of an early 2000s technology vibe, and um, looked at that and just said, if we really want to show up on a larger global enterprise level, let's look at the brand. Let's start there. And so we remessage, we rebuilt the entire website, soup to nuts. We did all of the branding. We have two huge, like 7-story buildings in India, and put giant new logos across the side of those, and just updated everything, like every single thing that had a logo on it. Um, and from there, that took about 16 months all in. It was a long process. And then I have a young team. So it was, I did an audit of the team, and everybody said they wanted to be a marketing generalist versus stay in their lane as a graphic designer, a video producer, or whatever. And so there's a lot of learning. There's a lot of teaching. I was in a boatload of meetings at first just because I had to be. There was no one else at that generalist strategy level at the time. Um, and it took about a year on that track to get everybody up to where now, dude, the team flies. They're autonomous. They're scrappy. It sounds insane, but we can spin up an entire multi-channel, all of the workflows, all the connectors, all the tools. We have a huge MarTech stack, and we can spin up an entire campaign in 2 days.
Yeah, I've seen that, your infographic on that, or your internal graphic on that. It's just, I was in awe. So let me ask you this in terms of the lead, right? So you had to come in, you had to kind of establish or create a branding, right? And then you obviously probably you guys started moving more into the lead generation side, or trying to
hmm
figure out, what do we do, right? What do we
hmm
do to break out of just, relying on referrals and network, and one guy moving to another place, and then how do we build some consistent manner of growth? What are some of the things that you looked at? What are some of the things that you
Sure.
tried? I love the buy or build analogy. Even when we first had our conversations, I said, hey, we're just going to be able to teach you, what we know, and then you'll be able to take
Yeah.
it and just put it in your toolbox as part of your repertoire. But maybe talk about some of the
Sure.
different things that you've tried, tested, and maybe have on the horizon, on the roadmap.
Yeah, the biggest challenge for us was because there had never been marketing, there had never been a sales and marketing relationship. The sales team would just come and say, hey, we need this PowerPoint or this video done, and we'd knock it out, and that was fine. But there was never a collaboration of saying, hey, I'm going to let you know how much you're going to sell this year. Because really, it's the marketing function to say, here's our forecast for the sales team. Here's how many leads we can deliver. Here's how to nurture them. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're asking you to do. And because of that, there was never really a need for a CRM outside of just taking notes on when the last time you reached out to a person. And even still, there was a lot of learning on the business development side because most of the time it was like all in the head. Oh, did I reach out to that guy? Oh, I forgot to reach out to. And so there was a big learning on even how to jump all in. We were paying gobs of money to HubSpot, and we weren't really using it that much. So there was a ton of us becoming one team because oftentimes, sales and marketing butt heads, like we're giving you leads, you're not closing deals, who's not. And for us, we're a people first organization, which means we're one team and we're very, very committed and serious about that. So that was a learning, and that was right around the time as we were figuring out CRM. We had a vendor with HubSpot that was kind of coming in and helping us shuffle some things around and create some new pipeline processes and automations there. Now it was because we had been flat on profitability for like 2.5 years. There wasn't a lot to put into the paid budget for paid media. And we said, okay, well, we can spend a lot of money figuring out what works, or we can talk to this guy that our CEO found out about and just jump right in. Let's pay so we don't have to learn the hard lessons.
I know we're both big fans of like Alex Hormozy and some of the other market. You
Yep.
knew I was going to say that, didn't you?
I almost brought the books in here. I could have put them back there on the shelf.
And he is a big believer in that, right? It's you look at things in terms of buy or build, and you say, you know what? If that person knows how to do it, and I can buy that expertise faster and get there faster, then it's better off than trying to divert my own resources or my own brain damage to try and learn this process. And we've done the exact same thing even in our agency as well to find, other folks in the industry and marketing. And that's what I applaud you, by the way, is that there's a lot of marketing folks out there that think they know everything, and which is I've been doing this for 15 plus years in terms of marketing, and I've done a lot of different stuff, but I don't know everything that there is in marketing. And so,
especially now with AI, like what is the future? What's marketing going to be next year? But anyway, let's not get into AI yet.
Yeah, we'll get back. That's actually a good topic. But, I just think that is such an important piece of both. And I think it's important in the context of this conversation that you guys were a $35 million, firm. And we're an agency that has specialized in a certain area of helping IT consulting firms, software dev firms, AI firms, B2B SaaS platform firms, right? In a very specific niche area, right? And we typically work with $2 to $10 million, firms, but we're starting to work with larger firms who are saying the same, taking that Hormozy approach, right? Which is like, hey, you know what? Like, let's just go buy this area of expertise these guys know how to do really well, and we'll just implement it ourselves on our side.
Well, what was nice about that, and it was a bit of happenstance, maybe a bit of luck. I'm bold enough to say most people's experiences with agencies are not good. And I get it. As a business, you need to make money, and making money for 25 other businesses is hard to keep everybody's values and goals top of mind. It's more like, let's just run the ads, let's write the things, let's make the website, whatever the case is. And there's not the level of thought that's put into it that an internal team would have. Mm-hmm. That being said, I've always strayed away from working with agencies. In every opportunity I've had, I've strayed away from it, and I've tried to take it on and learn it myself or whatever. But when your CEO comes and says, "Hey, we need to look at this guy," I'm like, "Are you sure, G?" And he said, "Yeah." And he has not been wrong yet. I don't know how he does it, but what was great about that short engagement with you is we learned a lot. Good. Of what currently works as far as ad layouts. I would have never used cheesy AI cartoon format.
Giving our secret sauce away.
And that's one of the best performing ads for B2B SaaS AI company. Like, that's crazy. So we learned, but what's even better about this is I have full confidence. I mean, you and I have gone out for beers. Mm-hmm. We've had a lot of interface together, and I have full confidence that when my team hits their bandwidth, we're going to bring you back in.
Yeah. If they do, but I agree. I appreciate that. Man. Yeah. And again, like you guys, there's few teams that we've come in with that I've been as impressed with, their implementation skills as you. You're like literally take the ball and run with it type of client, which we love, right? Because it's like, that's how you get to results fast.
It frustrates my wife too. I'm that way at home. I'm just like, let's go. And she's like, whoa. No, I appreciate that, and there's going to be a lot of learning between. Even look at the Andromeda update. Like if you're not aware as a marketing leader, you could be a one man band, you could be a 3-man team, whatever. But as a marketing leader, staying up with all the algorithmic changes is insane. And what's even more insane is how do you use effective AI tools? There's a controversial study that came out, and there's both sides to the coin here, but the statistic was 95% of people that use AI in their job, it does not contribute to the bottom line on the P&L. And so how as a marketing leader do you determine what tools to use based on the algorithms, based on what you're trying to accomplish in your goals? And that's why having someone like you is so helpful, because that's literally your job.
Yeah. And I'm curious to delve even into that because we use AI substantially. And we have for the last 3 years
Oh yeah.
to varying degrees, and it's just exponentially, getting more and more. I mean, I think I told you a few weeks ago I was even setting up, an open claw. Now I've got
Yep.
4 different
Yep.
instances of open claws and building agents on my side just for my things alone,
Same.
my
Yeah.
co-founders. But it brings up a good point, right? Which is like, okay, where is that line? And the whole point of Andromeda update with Meta is that they want more ad creatives, right?
Hmm.
And we're in this era where it now is so easy to produce creatives. Now, we can talk about whether or not it's, AI slop, but where is the line? What are tools that can be used in marketing to make things better, faster, easier, make it more efficient, make the marketplace more efficient?
Totally. At a base level, at a very simple level, before we go into the technical stuff, um, I've trained a bunch of models for different purposes. I keep a big prompt library so I don't have to type prompts, because the best prompts really are, minimum 5 paragraphs. You give a boatload of context. And so it's crystal clear. You only ask one thing at a time. And then you ask it to play devil's advocate on that answer. And there's a lot of technique on how to query, but uh, we have a huge handful of technology services that we offer, from cybersecurity to AI to custom software development, um, and many others. And then we have a whole product line too. And each one of those has its own brand and ICP and goals and maturity. And then beyond that, we have a couple merger and acquisitions that also need time and attention. I'm taking ITT RackNap to market in the US right now, and that's a full-time job. I've literally peeled away from my team. I brought another person up to speed as kind of our digital marketing strategist manager. And she's now the superstar that's just running these campaigns in 2 days, like spinning them up in 2 days and getting them all set and run. But the point being, every single service or product or company has its own model that's been trained on every piece of data we have on that thing. So now all I have to do is, I don't have to bring out this huge prompt initially to set the context. I just say, hey, based on the ICP document for telcos or for MVNOs or whatever, we're going to build some LinkedIn in-mail messaging for that ICP. Here's the target titles. What would the message be? And then I'll get that message, because in Perplexity, we have Enterprise Pro. It allows like 5,000 documents and training, so way more than GPT does. And I take what it spits out. Then I go over to my Hormozy GPT that I built and trained it with all the guys like Christo and anybody that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anything and everything we could scrape. And then say, okay, rewrite this, built to convert as short as possible without losing value, and written at a 5th grade reading level. And I'm telling you, that last piece, I've sent 20,000 emails this year, somewhere on there. And every time we do ABC version, we do like information, we do pain point, and then we do what I just shared, which
Mm-hmm.
is short as possible, 5th grade
Mm-hmm.
reading level. And 95% of the time, 98% of the time, that third email works way better.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that with all of the conversation. And then again, I mean, I think it's common knowledge at this point. You don't rely on it, on the answer. You get it 80% there, and then you finish it. And so we do that. We're making sure that the words that are used, that the offer, the lead magnet is very specific to. And I'll give you an example. We said we have a forecasting tool where for food and beverage, for manufacturing, where you can plug in historical data anywhere from 12 weeks and beyond, and we can get you uh, many percentages more accurate in your ordering. But we said in our ads, what got spit out was, hey, we'll do this in 7 days. And I was like, No, we won't. 30 to like MVP maybe, but yeah, so that that's how we use the typical prompt on LLM stuff, train it and then use it. But we've got a lot of AI tools beyond that. Like we're building, we have teammates building out end workflows to plug into LinkedIn for organic posting, where they get a Slack message and they're just like, oh yeah, I agree, post that. It generates the
Mhm.
image or the infographic or whatever. We have other ones that are building cold emails based on target titles. It'll go out and do social listening on their accounts and then speak to their pain points directly. It writes the email, it sends the email. We use Apollo to scrape information. We use Instantly to warm inboxes and send them. I'm spinning up 400 inboxes for RackNap right now, which is a task. All the domains you got to buy. I mean, 40 domains, 400 inboxes. And then, our goal is to send 20,000 emails a week. So
Jeez.
it's just, I could go on tools, but I would say it's better to know how to use the tool than to use the tool.
Agree. Well, and let me ask you two things. You mentioned just there about the specificities being specific with ICP and messaging, and I want to ask you about that because that's obviously a big component of our offer. And then the second thing I'm going to get to is, I want to talk. A lot of people are surprised when we tell them that we're targeting enterprise and mid market folks, and folks for you know that typically you wouldn't think of would be on Meta, right? Which
Yeah.
is Facebook and Instagram. And
Yeah.
the first question they ask is like, why not LinkedIn? And you had mentioned even just some organic things or some outreach stuff you're doing on LinkedIn, but maybe, and maybe you can kind of interweave
Sure.
the two of them together as to, when we get that comment or
Yep.
that question from people, it's like, why Meta? Like what's been your experience
So
with it?
there's two reasons to start with Meta. It's way cheaper. You have a ton of targeting opportunity. I think I tell SMBs, mid-market companies, I love marketing. I can't not talk about it. And so I go into a business that I like and I'm like, hey, what are you doing to acquire customers? Are you using Meta? Because you should. Doesn't matter what you are, coffee shops or whatever. But what we do is we'll come up with messaging, and we have 5 different versions of ads, and we have a bunch of different versions of hooks and primary text and calls to action. We have different styles of landing pages that we set up and workflows within that to give us notifications when someone fills out a form and then someone books a meeting and then reminder stuff. But we start with Meta because we want to know if the messaging is solid. So we have 25 Meta campaigns ready to turn the switch on at any given any time. Um, because if we turn the switch on and put, $5,000 behind it on messaging just to test it, and even 5,000 is low. Typically, you went between 8 and 10,000 for message viability. But for us and where we're at with budget and spend and campaigns, we spend 5,000 on Meta, and our KPI is if we get 4 form fills and 2 booked calls. Form fills to booked calls ratio is just over 50%. So if we can get 4 and 2, then we up the budget. We turn on the other systems like Google Ads, LinkedIn, and cold email. And now we have a campaign that we're running, and then we very closely monitor that. And the goal is to be spending about 40,000 a month on one campaign if it's optimized and working. So after that first week, we have 5 different ads we're running. We know which 2 styles are working best, so we cut the other 3 and backfill them with either totally different style of imagery or wording or layout design, just to see, just to test, innovate, and then other 2 are more in line with what the top 2 are, whether that's a tweet ad or a silly AI cartoon ad, whatever the case is. But that's how we optimize on week 2, and then from there we can continue to iterate. But starting with Meta, it's cheap. You can't. I mean, try to test messaging on LinkedIn when you're spending $250 per booked call. That's pretty darn expensive.
Let me ask you this. When you talk about Meta and your approach, which is really the same thing we approach it as well in terms of going out and just trying to find out if there's a product market fit or a market message fit in the first place, right? Is that how you look at it as well?
So I've always said 80% of marketing is research. Um, Now research is easier, thankfully, but
Mhm.
we start with personas. We know what the industry is. We know how much a company's ARR needs to be able to afford us. If you look at a $50,000 AI implementation, you're not going to go after a small business because there's no way they have the budget for that. So they have to be ready to spend a certain amount to make even more. So we're saying like, unless unless you can get 100K ROI, you can work with us if that's going to be the ROI on this implementation, 100K a year addition, because now you can afford 50K because it's very justifiable on ROI. But we look at the company size, and then we go after the target titles. And when we look at the target titles, we have the technical buyer, we have the decision maker, and then we have the end user. And those are usually the three personas that we look at. And we go in depth. I mean, like pages and pages and pages of
Very
information.
specific.
So we're going after, okay, what is the company they're at? Let's go look at the ads that their company has been running and the words that they're using, the things that are important to them. Let's look at this target title's LinkedIn, the history of the past 12 months of their posting. What are they caring about or sharing or saying? And then we build out a full-on psychographic, demographic persona on these three people. And then we start to build, because we have a lot of information there. We look at the competitive landscape in this area, how many people are actually doing AI receptionists or AI predictive forecast models or things like that. And, we were going to we were going to productize a dairy tool that we built and implemented and for a company. And we're like, it sounds like a great idea. They loved it. It's doing a ton for them. Like, AI is awesome. But then we looked at it and realized that it's would be impossible to get into that market, because there's dairies. There's usually about 100 dairies that belong to a conglomeration that's owned by a larger company, and then that company dictates what software is used across the swath of their portfolio. And to try to tell them that the stuff they're using that's already working for them, we can do better, that's a pretty tough sell. And then
Yeah.
implementing at 100 different companies. So we're like, yeah, let's not productize that. But it applies to manufacturing. So let's go after that. Now that manufacturing campaign is crushing it right now. I mean, we had to build out our sales team. We were getting so many booked calls.
For 2026, so what are we, middle of February right now? Pretty close. Where is your paid ads advertising budget going for 2026? What percentage of it is going to Meta versus other?
We have a variable strategy for this. The more accounts we close, the more partners we take on from our campaigns, the more marketing dollars I have. So my goal would be spending, $150,000 a month if possible, because we're bringing in and closing so many deals. Meta easily takes 50%, more than, I'd say about 75% of our budget goes to Meta, because we're only doing like 1,000 on pay-per-click or SEM type stuff, 1,000 on LinkedIn. And a lot of times we're doing, instead of like advertising on LinkedIn, it's more, if you meet with us, we'll give you a gift card, $150, because that actually brings your cost per book call way down, usually. So we have different strategies, but all in, Meta has been so productive for us. And again, we're not going after mom and pop shops. We're going after mid-market to enterprise level companies. I mean, we had one guy say, I saw your ad. That AI tool is cool. We're actually looking for an AI partner. Our budget's $1 million a year. And we're like, we could work with that.
I think that's what's surprising. That's what, we get that all the time, right? And I wonder if part of it is that, that enterprise, mid-market, folks, business professionals kind of feel like they're off stage a little or checked out a little when they're on Instagram or Facebook. And when you have such powerful messaging, specific messaging to call out an ICP with their very specific problem, I wonder if that really, like, we've heard that a few times from more than a few times, a good handful of times from folks saying, I wasn't expecting to be like called out over there. Like, right. Like I was just in between dinner and doing things in their personal life. And all of a sudden they're like, versus LinkedIn, where everyone knows that's the professional playground, so to speak.
Yep. Here's a really interesting learning that I think it seems obvious in hindsight, but we didn't see it for the first few months of campaigning the way we do now. We stopped spending a budget on a 7-day period, and we broke it up into weekday and weekend. We only spend 40% of the budget on the first 5 days, and we spend 60% of the budget from Friday to Sunday. For that exact reason, we get way more booked calls on the weekend. We even thought about like, let's just not advertise on weekdays and put all 5,000 on the weekend.
We see that across. We see that the same thing for our own campaigns and for our client campaigns as well.
And it's a no duh now, but we didn't until we started optimizing and looking at the numbers. We're like, whoa, we got to shift some more dollars to the weekend. This is the good time because they're looking to relax. You're in your free time. And often I recognize marketing every single time, from how they spoof emails to like, hey, hope you got my last email, when it's really the first email. They say all the little tricks and sleazy ways to,
Forwarded from.
yeah, exactly. But one thing that I recognize is on a weekend when, maybe I'm out and my daughter's riding the bike at the bike park. So I'm like, okay, cool. Snap a photo of her and look at Facebook, maybe post something. And my guard is down. I'm not looking to be sold, but if you're speaking to my pain point where I'm like, wow, I need this on Monday, versus it's Monday, I'm looking at email and I get sold one of those sleazy emails. I'm just like, no, blocked immediately. My guard is way up. So weekends, yeah, that's the move.
Yeah, I think it's huge. What about in terms of go back to the LinkedIn thing, right? Because we get that a lot, comparing, LinkedIn. What's been your experience over there, both from an outreach standpoint and running, paid ads? Because we've run paid ads there. We
Totally.
have not had a lot of success. It's been very expensive. And maybe when you said about Meta being a very cost-effective channel, comparing it to that, and Google too. Google's
Yeah.
very expensive too for cost per clicks. But maybe talk about what your experience has been using LinkedIn.
Similar experience when you're looking at pure cold outreach. Now, for RackNap, we're building out some agents that are going to ground and pound to the maximum limit they can before they damage the Sales Navigator account, and do it autonomously and just over and over and over. You can send, I forget how many promoted messages, not in mail, but the other form of paid messaging. It's a huge, it's astronomically high number.
Oh, okay.
Because in mail is only
I think it's
very
800
small.
a month, right?
No, way less than that. Anyways, here's how we use LinkedIn and what we've seen be effective. In our workflow, we have HubSpot workflows. We have a few of those built out, and then we have Zapier workflows. We have like 8 of those built out, and they apply to every campaign in various ways. And maybe it's worth even editing in our flow chart just to see it more organized. But we have a form on the landing page 1. If they put their name, company email, and we turned off allowing public email service like Gmail, because we had a bunch of garbage leads coming in because of that. And once we did that, now we're getting real leads. They're putting in their phone number. We can scrape the information. We can get their LinkedIn info. But if they filled out the form, it goes immediately to a scheduler page. It's kind of like a landing page 2. And if they don't schedule, it enrolls them in a workflow that sends some reminders and follow-ups. It also sends a message on LinkedIn. First off, a connection that has the message, hey, we saw you, blah, blah, blah. Let's connect. Happy to answer questions. Then we also put them into a remarketing campaign where it's building out that list and then starting. So we've had a bunch of people, like I said, it's a little over 50% of the people that fill out the initial form do not book calls. And because of that, the remarketing, we've had a bunch of book calls because of remarketing back into Meta.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had a bunch of booked calls from LinkedIn messages, one-to-one. I'm not selling you. You showed me that you're interested.
Right.
I'm reaching out to help.
Almost like a form of remarketing on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
It's kind of outreach and remarketing at the same time.
Just today, and we use phone numbers too, and we use Apollo to enrich all that data. Just today, we've been trying to get in front of this big account that filled out the form but didn't book a call. We've been emailing, we've been messaging, we've been LinkedIn, we've been calling. Oh, no, we hadn't been calling, but we did today. We called this morning, and the guy's like, oh, yeah, just got back from travel. I really want to talk to you guys. And it already turned into a second meeting. So of all of the calls that we book and have successful completed calls, at least, I don't know, maybe 70% of them turn into second calls. And we've got a whole pipeline of people that want to work with us, which is awesome. And so LinkedIn is way more effective as like a follow-up. Like you said, remarketing is a good way to share about that.
Yeah. All right. What else have we missed? What else have we touched on?
I would say understand marketing, like the psychological entertainment of humans. How does it work? For instance, and this is hard if you're not a student of marketing, but the eyes process design 60,000 times faster than they can read a word. So what's more important in the above the fold content on a website? 75% of people, 3 out of 4 people will mistrust the entire brand if they have a bad website. That's crazy. SEO is important, especially in, there's a lot of terms, but AI optimization of content. Going back and rewriting your blogs to be more question and answer format. It's way easier for AI to pull that as a chunk to show up in the generated response. So the design of the ad, of the website, of the landing page matters quite a bit. The words you use, there's a big difference between word A and word B, and being able to A/B test those and really see. So, I mean, A/B testing is huge. And if you're really, really attentive to the words and the styles and the layouts and what's working, what's not working, like the short emails, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, that you're only going to do better. And so I would say researching how the mind works, think about putting yourself in the shoes of that person. Janie Smith has a great book called The Competitive Advantage. She goes through and interviews thousands and thousands of companies to help do research for them based on whatever the goals are. And I was at a Vistage meeting and heard her present. And so, I've clung on to this one. When I think about what my ICP's top 3 priorities are, it's usually in their bottom 10, if not lower, of what the actual priority is. We have a dispatch tool called Roll on Dispatch. It's part of our Next Gen Ag Tech feedlot management software. And we thought saying this tool will save you a ton of time was the right thing to do. And it does. It saved
Mm-hmm.
a boatload of time. But what we found out in hindsight, they really just wanted a vacation to drink a beer on the beach. So I want to run a campaign. I think my next campaign is going to be your next
this.
ad on your next beach vacation on us, with a little asterisk that says use Roll on Dispatch and you're going to save enough time to go on that vacation.
I'm gonna latch onto that. I love that because we talk so much about using call outs and not just being features and benefits, right? Cost savings and all this, right? But the emotional driver, as all of us as people, right, have, right? We are all self-driven to a degree, right? It's just hardwired in us, right? And what is driving us individually, right? And it is so important to get to those layers when you are messaging through marketing, right? And they even just without you describe that, right? Yeah, it could have tremendous cost savings and cost effectiveness. But when you start talking about drinking a beer on the beach, boy, I lit
Yeah.
up. I like all of a sudden engaged, right?
And what's funny about that company that we learned that from, the employees, the other target titles, non-CEO, the other decision makers, that was what they wanted to do, drink a beer on the beach. The CEO, with all the time he saved, launched a new business. He just started, and he's like, "Hey, I got time now. I'm gonna do this thing." With the amount of time that we saved in our forecasting tool, one of the companies that we work with, they had wanted to acquire another company, but it wasn't going to be worth it because they couldn't address the data. And now that they have this tool, they're like, hey, we were actually able to buy this large organization over here and bring it under our umbrella so that we can expand our offering in the space. And so it's not just time that it's saved, but it's like what is the quality of your life or of your business's life that you want to improve upon?
All right, that's a deep one.
I want to hear what your resources are, the ones that we've gone all in on. Anything Alex Hormozy. If I'm in the car, I'm listening to The Game, his podcast. Read all of his books. I mean, didn't just read. I read and then read and then read and then created this whole tool that takes out all of his stories and everything and compiles it into this actual step 1, do this, step 2, do that. And I can give that to any of the people that, like, one of the merger and acquisitions is some airport software. It controls where all of the things that are out on the tarmac are, their health, things like that. And so I'm able to give that tool to the owner of that software, of that product, and then he can fill it out. And we have messaging guides. We have, for RackNap, we have product level messaging, we have module level messaging, we have ICP level messaging, and we have use case level messaging. It's about 210 pages of messaging at different levels. So having some kind of messaging framework is awesome. Software as a Service, Dan Martell and those guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's a phenomenal book.
Yep.
Software as a Service. Yeah.
Yep.
Software as a Science. Sorry.
His book.
His book. Yeah,
Yes.
Dan Martell's book.
Yes.
Um, we became a student of that and had 6 of our product teams read through it and create their own playbook.
I really like Hermosi, and I'll tell you why. I'm a big keep it simple type of guy, right? Like, and what I like about Alex is that when you read those books, I've given them to my, then 13-year-old at the time to have
Yeah.
explain marketing, techniques. And here we are as expert marketers. I'll put you in that class. I'll begrudgingly,
Oh, no.
barrow myself in there. But, we see the value of it. And I think Alex does such a good job at getting a message across to where you made up earlier, like that 5th grade level, just simplifying things. Things don't need
Yeah.
to be complicated like you're launching the space shuttle. And I think, in tech and in marketing, we do, make things a little too complicated at times. But I like Alex for that very reason that he's able to simplify concepts down to be very understandable, whether you're I like to call them entrepreneurs. I want to become an entrepreneur. And those of us that are experienced marketers. And that's what I really like about.
It's funny because they work. The more I look at optimizing my campaigns, the more they're turning into playbooks straight out of what Alex does. Like we went out to acquisition.com, his headquarters in Vegas, to meet with him over a course of a few days. We brought 3 of our guys out there. And what he does, he only uses his own advice. And so he used his own advice on the $100 million offers and then the $100 million leads to launch his 3rd book, $100 million money models. And it was like world record setting. The guy made so much money that weekend. And it was like a 10-hour long launch that he repeated the following day live on YouTube. I mean, and he didn't do anything special. He literally did what was in his books and set world records. And so that is, I find myself not wanting to spend as much time on marketing theory nowadays versus marketing playbooks. What's actually working for other people. Dan Martell's podcast is super interesting. He brings up so many valid points, like the psychology behind calling your ICP target title out by name. Hey, are you a decision maker at a company that makes over $10 million a year? If so, this ad's for you. It's going to make you read the next line. And so there's so many tricks that you can learn off the success of other people.
Yeah.
And
I think so. Even like, there's a lot of folks on X that I follow, and I won't name any here, but you can find a lot of people on X that are, I mean, just I've been impressed with these younger folks that have come in that are in their 20s,
Yeah,
and just teaching me the old dog new tricks, right? And it's just impressive, and I think that there is a lot that you can learn. Just I always say, those of us that love marketing, we don't know everything, and there's always something to learn. There's one thing for
totally.
certain about marketing: it may work today, but it may not work tomorrow.
My brother-in-law day traded as a freshman in high school, all through high school. He didn't pay attention as much to what the teacher was sharing and really was just there cranking away, making money. And it's those type of people that are going to take AI and be the next billionaires as a 19-year-old. Like there's going to be so many rich kids because they're willing to lean in as an early adopter of new technology and AI. There's millions and millions of AI products and solutions, and I would say the huge majority of them have a lot of gaps to fill still.
Mm-hmm.
But the rate in which we're improving, when we went from GPT-4 to 5, it was almost a vertical intelligence leap. It was insane. And it's only going to get better. I mean, the CEO of Claude said he thinks we're going to have Marvel's Jarvis, Iron Man's Jarvis level capability by 2027. That's next year.
Yeah. I think 2026 is going to just be an exponentially growth year for AI. In fact, I'm glad that we didn't get into too much of the details of it. I think we'll have to say that for the next time we do our interview. But I think 2026 is really going. I was saying that to my 17-year-old son. He is one of those kids. I think I told you that he started his own agency. He's calling on med spa agencies and helping them build automations and doing all this stuff. And I'm like, man, I'm impressed. But I said to him yesterday in passing in the kitchen, I was like, I think 2026 is literally going to be the exponential growth, that we're just going to see this just explosion of what AI can really truly do, and it's going to be exciting.
It's exciting. It also has repercussions. I mean, Amazon just laid off like 16,000 people as part of their AI initiative. Not that AI is here to take jobs, but it certainly will optimize your business processes. And that's what we do is we come in and we'll do AI readiness for businesses and look at where can you save times in your different organizations, whether it's back of house operations, front of house, um, and then what would make you back the most money by solving for that constraint or that thing that takes too much time to invest in or that legacy app, whatever the case is. And so I think just kind of as a parting note is being strategic about the decisions you make and not just throwing money at shiny things like you shared. Um, but really appreciating what can be done if you're willing to take on new things or try on new things.
Agree. Well, hey man, I really appreciate it. Appreciate the time.
Yep.
Thanks for sitting down with me and doing this. I
Love
love this. I want to
marketing.
do this again.
Yep.
I know. Two marketers, we could probably talk for hours. I'm sure the folks back here are like, no, please don't. So
I know. Well, cool, man. Had fun.
yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, man.
Oh, cool.